Good afternoon, our Facebook friends. This is Paul Wallin. I'm the senior partner of Wallin Klarich. Today we're going to talk about your children. About once every day, our law firm gets a call from parents of children, and they tell us that they've been arrested because they left their children home alone or with other children, and the child may get out and a neighbor might see that, and then the police come out and they arrest them for either child endangerment or child abuse. You might think that it wouldn't happen to, say, yourself because you're really a responsible parent, but then I would ask you, what do you think the law is regarding when it is legal to leave your child unattended? Or what do you think the law says about, can you leave your 12-year-old watching your 3-year-old? And if so, for how long? And the interesting answer to that question in the state of California is, nobody knows. That's because there is no specific law or age that tells you that you are on the right side of the law or on the bad side of the law, because it depends on many criteria. 95% of the parents who end up getting in trouble for leaving their children unattended or with a child that is too young tell the police, well, my child's responsible. And they then say, well, what is the age? And that's the wrong time to ask when you're arrested and asking a police officer. We urge you to listen to this and spread this to your friends, so then you'll ask the question before you get in trouble with the law. And here's how it works. There is no set age that you can say in every case, but it starts with a general belief in the courts that by the time a child is 12, and say in the 7th or 8th grade, it's probably okay to leave the child home by himself, so long as there's certain rules, obviously, that the child's told to follow. Like, they can't go outside the house, they can't go to the mall. And of course, it is not proper to leave a child unattended, even at age 11 or 12, overnight. Another bit of advice when deciding when you should decide to leave your child with another child of a certain age is always 100% have your child have an emergency number where they can call, and of course have your cell number, so if a question comes up when you're gone, they don't freak out and run out of the house. It's also a good idea to tell one of the neighbors that you trust that, hey, you're going to leave your child alone for 2 hours to go to the grocery store. Can you check up on him or her? That's almost a guarantee that nothing is going to happen. But to leave a 7-year-old home alone because you need to go to the CVS to pick up a prescription, that happens all the time. Is it legal? Probably not, even for a couple hours. Now, when someone's actually prosecuted for a crime like that, the court looks at various factors. They look at whether or not the parents have a prior history of child abuse or child neglect. They look at how mature the particular child is. They look at, was there any other dangers left in the house? Were the doors locked? Those kind of things. And why that's important, because in California, literally you can be filed as a felony in some cases where you're facing up to 3 years in jail, or the case can be filed as a misdemeanor where you're facing some possible time in county jail. But what parents don't understand is, in addition to the punishment that they may or may not receive from a criminal case, when this happens, the police are legally obligated to call someone you never want them to call. Your friendly neighborhood social worker. Because the social worker is going to visit your house and then is going to question the hell out of your entire family and is going to determine whether or not your children should be taken from you and put in temporary foster care while you go through about 1 million classes and jump through 1 million hoops to convince the judge that you are not a danger to your own children. Even though the criminal court is horrible because you're facing jail time, there is no worse court in California than the child dependency court. Because once the system gets your children, and once they're placed in foster care, it's like needing dynamite to convince them that you've done enough to get your children back. So it's not just one court you'll be dealing with if you leave your children unattended, but it will be two possible courts. One where you're facing the possibility of jail time, and the other where you're facing the possibility of losing your children. Of course, it's a range. For example, we have had clients who have called us who have decided that they thought it was appropriate because their 8-month-old was sleeping in the crib to go out to a quick dinner for 2 hours. Of course, the child, screaming hysterically, wakes up with a nightmare. The neighbors call the police. They lost their children they lost that baby for 8 months. That means they had monitored visits with their baby for 8 months because of that one bonehead move. We know that there are times in your life where children are the greatest things that ever happen. You love your children, of course. It's what many parents live for. But sometimes parents forget that they really are just not able to do much to take care of themselves at a young age. And even when you believe it's an emergency to get to CVS to pick up this or that, or diapers, because you're out, you cannot leave your child unattended. And in addition to that, when you take your child with you to CVS to get diapers, you cannot leave the child in the car, especially if it's hot. Please keep these thoughts in mind. You guys spend a fortune every year on your children because for most people who have children, except for their spouse or significant other, there's nothing more important in their life than their children. And the state of California takes the same position. Your children are precious. There are hundreds of social workers, people who are trained to do nothing else than to believe they are the savior for our children. And once a social worker gets into your life, they may be well-intended. It takes a tremendous amount to convince the social worker that you are now going to be a safe parent when you've given them an opening to believe you are not a good parent. Please keep this in mind. This might be a tremendous video to share with other friends of yours who have children of a young age. And if you have any questions, call us. We'll gladly answer your questions free of charge on this or any other legal matter. Have a great week.